Welcome back, everyone, to our ongoing Google tutorial series. Today's session is going to be focusing on Google Drive, formerly known as Google Docs. And of all the different apps within Google, this is perhaps the one that has evolved the most over the last several years and has become an exceptionally useful tool for those of us that really use technology actively and manage a lot of data and a lot of documents and information. It's just a really helpful tool that you can use when you're working in a collaborative environment. And so we're going to kind of start with the basics, which are the types of documents that you can have in Google and how you might, or excuse me, Google Drive and how you might go about creating those. So over here you'll see the New button. And so this tells you all the different types of documents that you can include in Google Drive. So the basics that you may be familiar with are Google Docs, which corresponds to a Word document, Google Sheets, which corresponds to an Excel document, Google Slides, which corresponds to a PowerPoint, and then you also have Forms, which is a way that you can create a basic form online, Drawings, which is almost like using the Paint function if you're using Windows, and then actually a relatively new one is Maps, which I haven't used that, so I'm not really going to touch on either of those today because they're not ones that I'm really that familiar with. In addition to these basic functions, you can also create folders, which is part of organizing your Google Drive. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute, as well as uploading files. So any type of file that you can imagine, you can basically upload directly into your Google Drive in its existing form. So those are the types of documents that you can create. I'm not going to get into detail about what you can do in each of these individual documents during this tutorial. That's a topic for a different time, but just so you know the types of documents that you can create. So the next piece that we'll talk about is sharing files. So for the sake of demonstration, I am going to go ahead and create a new Google Doc, just a basic Word document. And so once I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and give this a title. We'll just call it my test document. So one of the main reasons that Google Docs were created and why they exist and why they're helpful as a tool is when you need to collaborate with other people on the same project or the same document. So really, when you think about the uses of Google Docs and why you have Google Docs, it's not just really a substitute for Microsoft Word or for some of the other Microsoft Office documents that you're used to. It's intended to be a collaborative tool. So for that reason, we have the share function. And this is where you can control what other people have the ability to see and or edit this document. So again, we have this system tied into our campus directory. So let's say I wanted to share this document with my supervisor. I could type in that person's name. I can choose whether or not they have the ability to edit, view, or comment on that document. Comment's probably not something you use that often, but if you want them to be able to actually edit the document, you can do that. If you just want them to be able to see it, you can choose the view option. Adding a note, so basically this means when they get the notification that that document has been shared with them, you can write a quick note and say, hey, this is what this document is about. By default, it notifies the person via email. If for whatever reason you don't want them to, you can unclick that, but of course you generally want that person to know that they have received it. If I click on the advanced function, it actually shows me, will show me the list of everyone who has the ability to access it. You can also change the settings, so by default it's private, but let's say you wanted this document to be public and anyone could access it at any time, and it can also be, that also means it can be found in search engines if someone looked for it. Anyone with the link, you could confine it to UNCG, so only people that are logging in from a UNCG email account could access it. Variety of different functions, but by default it's set to private, and then only the specific people that you choose can access it. So that is kind of the basics of how you share documents with people, and again, you can come back in at any point and edit these settings. So I'm going to be done with that for the moment. All right. Okay. So going back to our drive for a moment, you'll notice that there was the file upload option. So there's a couple of different things that you can do with this. The basic file upload is simply to upload files to your drive. And the way that Google Drive has evolved now is it used to be that when you uploaded any kind of Microsoft document, it would automatically convert it into a Google form. They've moved away from that, although you can change that in your settings. But if I just wanted to, let's say, pull this Word document into my Google Drive, I can upload it that way, and you'll see that it now appears right here down at the bottom in my Google Drive. So it stays as a Word document. It's not been converted into a Google Doc. It's just a Word document, but it is now stored in my Google Drive. And the way that this becomes helpful in terms of just storing regular documents in a Google Drive, because of course I can't edit that document through Google Drive, but it's helpful and it now exists in the cloud. So let's say I need to go back, let's say I'm doing a presentation and I save my PowerPoint and need to access it on a different computer from the one that I created it on. In the past, people tend to email those documents to themselves as a way to have that accessible to them when they pull it up on a different computer. You no longer have to do that with Google Drive. You simply upload it to your Google Drive, and then you can go into your Drive and download that document on whatever device you happen to be using for your presentation. So it's just a lot cleaner, it's a lot easier than having to go through the business of emailing it to yourself when you can upload documents. Now, if you do want to go back to the old-fashioned way of it automatically converting documents into their Google formats, you can actually change that in your settings. So you can click for this for uploaded files to be switched to Google Docs format. And of course, that's only going to work for anyone for which there is a corresponding application in Google, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So that's the basics of uploading and conversion. Then, of course, if you want to download a file, so let's see, go back to my test document, which I'm not really sure what happened. Oh, there's my test document. Okay. So if I wanted to download this as a Word document or as an Excel, whatever, depending on what you happen to be doing with, I can choose to do that right here. And then I can choose the format in which it is downloaded. So because this is a Google Doc, I can choose it as a Word. I can do it as a PDF. There's a couple other options here which you probably wouldn't be dealing with quite as much. So that's a very handy way to quickly do that. So I can download it as a Word. It's going to come down here, and then I can open up my test document as a Word document. And so for the download function, it will automatically convert those documents into whatever their corresponding item is in Office. The next thing that I want to talk about is folders. And so one of the ways in which Google Drive has really evolved is your ability to organize information. So when we think about using this almost like an online filing system, is you can create folders to organize your information. So you'll recall from earlier, there's a way to create a folder, and you can give that whatever title you want to call it. So let's call it the test folder. And I can now organize my information based on this folder system. So a couple different ways you can organize that. I can come down and I can pull this document that I just uploaded into my test folder, and now it automatically appears there. Or let's say I've created a document, or someone shared a document with me and I want it to pop into that folder. Once I'm in the document, I can click on the little folder icon up here, and I can choose which folder I want to put it in. And it does that automatically. So that makes it real easy. And now that if I reload this, we'll see that my test document now appears there. So basically, it works like files on your computer. But it enables you to actually combine both ordinary files and documents that you would have on your computer, as well as Google Docs kind of side by side, which is really handy if you are trying to organize information on a lot of it. Now, in our department at UNCG, we do tend to be very Google Doc heavy, so we're going to get a lot more Google Docs and Google apps alongside our normal everyday files that we might need to organize. And so that's, I think, where the true advantage to Google Drive comes in, is the ability to organize those things kind of side by side. So this is really just an excellent way to kind of organize your life and organize your information. Some people don't organize these things into folders and things like that, so it makes it a lot harder to find documents that have been shared with them. And the more and more documents that you get shared, the more and more cluttered this is going to appear. So to give you an example of what it might look like without that organization, I'm going to click on Shared with Me. And these are basically all the documents that have been shared with me by other people in the department or at UNCG. And so you'll see it's basically ordered. You can choose what way it's ordered in. You can choose to organize it alphabetically. You can choose to organize it based on the date that it was shared with you. But in the end, it's still not quite as easy to navigate as just simply having them in folders. In addition, another easy way, much like with Gmail, Google Calendars, you can actually search for particular documents. So let's say you know the name of a document, but you can't remember where you stored it, or really it's just a lot faster than going and picking through all your folders to get to it. I can just type in the name of it at the beginning, and things will start to populate. So that's a really easy way to navigate around your Google documents as well. Now, at this level, again, Google Docs, very useful, very handy tool, great way to keep yourself organized. But where you can really take Google Docs to the next level, or Google Drive to the next level, is syncing it to your computer. And so you'll notice down here, and depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC, it'll give you the correct button there. But basically, you can choose to install Google Drive on your computer in a way that syncs all your files together. And if any of you are familiar with Dropbox, basically this is much like Dropbox, although Google was a little later to the game, and it works the same way. So I already have it downloaded, and I'm not going to go through that process. But basically, you click on that, you go through the process of installing Drive on whatever device you happen to be using. And once the installation process is complete, you will receive a little icon that will be installed on your computer. So on Macs, it pops up here on your top of your screen. For PCs, it typically comes up down here on the right side of the Start menu. And so what this does is essentially turns Google Drive into a normal folder on your computer. So all of my files that are in there now appear on here just as normal documents. And you can certainly see you'll see Word documents alongside Google documents, all those different things. If I click on the Word document, it's going to open it just like a Word document. If I click on the test document, it will take me it will automatically pull it up in Google. And where this really truly becomes handy is, let's say you're navigating across multiple devices. So maybe you have a work computer, and then you have a personal laptop, and then you have a tablet, and then you have a smartphone. All of your devices on which you have Google Drive installed will then sync with one another. So if I were to, I've created this folder, this test folder, and I put these two documents in here today. Now, if I were to go back to my personal laptop and pull up Google Drive, I also have it synced there, it'll automatically appear there as well. And so this is exceptionally helpful if you are someone who works across multiple devices and wants to be able to constantly edit documents on either one and have them automatically sync across all your devices. So it's really a really way to make yourself more efficient and to work more efficiently. I personally operate almost exclusively out of Google Drive for that reason, because I can access all of my documents, all of my information at any point across multiple devices. That is really taking Google Drive to the next level and making it something that truly can make your work more efficient, more productive, and able to work basically anywhere and to share information in a really quick and expeditious manner. So that is something that, of course, is optional, but I really encourage it, especially if you are someone who tends to work across multiple devices. So that pretty much concludes our Google Drive tutorial. Again, there are more options that you can continue to explore on your own time, but those are the basics that I'll share with you today. And we hope you'll stay tuned for the final video in our tutorial, which is kind of a summary of some of the other tools that you have available to you in Google Apps.